About that. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're watching James's master class in how to win elections, how to win people over. Texas.
My final claim is that the biggest divide in our politics is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. Hi. What's your name?
Krista.
Krista. Spending 8 years in the middle of this broken political system, I've come to realize that the biggest divide is between the billionaires who run this political system, who run this economy, who increasingly run this whole country, versus the rest of us, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, progressives or conservatives. And I've seen how those billionaires pit us against each other with their algorithms, with their cable news networks. They're trying to divide us by party, by race, by gender, by religion, so we don't notice that they're picking our pockets. They're closing our schools and gutting our health care, raising taxes on all of us while they cut taxes for themselves. So what I'm trying to do is bring us all together across all these divisions so we can take power away from them and bring it back into our communities.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from on that. And I agree that lobbying does play a big role in like some of our representatives. You know, the more funding they get, the more they have to advertise for, you know, their position that they want. But where I disagree on that is I believe that how can I say this? I believe that economics, like the top versus the bottom, accounts for economic inequity. But I believe ideology is where the polarization comes in. So you're a man of faith, correct?
Yeah.
So
try to be.
You are, definitely. So wouldn't you say that your faith drives who you are as a person and your beliefs?
Absolutely. And I agree that political polarization is a problem. What I'm trying to get us to realize is how these systems that we're in, a broken political system, a broken media system, a broken social media system, how that exacerbates ideological differences. Of course, we're all very different people. We're going to have different opinions. But these algorithms, these cable news networks, they fan the flames of those disagreements. And that's why we have such polarized politics, in my opinion.
So you think it's like an echo chamber, like, is that what you're stating?
I think that these billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Rupert Murdoch, the people who increasingly own traditional media and new social media, they have a vested interest in all of us being divided. Because if we recognize that we are far more alike than we are different, if we realize that we have far more in common, we're going to take power back from them and we're going to bring it back into our communities.
So where I would disagree on that is there's so many economic elites. So let's just give an example. The owners of Ben and Jerry, they spend so much time on, climate change, trying to draw that back. They spend a lot of time on putting their time into charity. Let's just say putting it towards charity for those who are less fortunate. But we have the polar opposite, right? Let's just say the owner of Chick-fil-A, they spend a lot of their time donating to more conservative. So I would say that it's not just the elite. I believe it goes back to their ideology because we see people who are multimillionaires and they're still donating to the left. They're still donating to the right. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. What I'm trying to propose is that we limit the influence of those very, very wealthy people, whether they're on the left or the right, in our political system. They can have their own opinions. There's nothing more American than having your own opinions. They shouldn't have an outsized influence on our political system. They shouldn't be able to buy politicians by the dozen. I'll just give you one example. Here in Texas, there are two billionaires in West Texas, Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks. They basically run our state government. I bet most Texans don't even know their names, but every member of the state Senate has taken their money. A majority of the members of the state House have taken their money. And for some of these legislators, a majority of their entire campaign contributions come from just these two billionaires.
Okay.
And they use that influence, they use their wealth to shift our state into a far right direction, the most extreme abortion ban in the country, the most insane gun laws in the country. All of that is because these two billionaires have remade our state government in their own image. I'm trying to stop them from doing that. They can have their own opinions. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to stop that. I'm trying to prevent the top 1%, these billionaire mega donors, from being able to dictate public policy in this state and in this country.
So when we have the issue of, let's just say, another multimillionaire in Texas is using it for policies that you agree with, are you going to do that on both sides or are you going to just do it on a certain side? How are you going to combat that?
I'm going to limit the influence.
Oh my God, that's such a stupid point. Are you just gonna do it against your opponents, or are you just gonna do it for everybody? It's like, no, the law for the people law would be for everybody. Okay.
Of billionaires on both sides of the aisle,
But
whether
how?
it's a Democratic billionaire or a Republican billionaire. I think we've got to ban things like super PACs. I think we've got to even further limit campaign contributions. I think we've got to prevent lawmakers from being able to engage in insider trading and buying and selling these stocks. I think we need just basic ethics reform, basic transparency, basic accountability, because when our political system works for the uber wealthy, it doesn't work for the rest of us. In fact, it hurts the rest of us. It's why we can't seem to get ahead no matter how hard we work. It's why we can't seem to afford anything, whether it's groceries or whether it's housing or healthcare or childcare. It's because the system is not built to work for us. It's built to work for those billionaires. And it's working very well for them. I think the way we fix that is by reforming our political system so that it can actually be a government of, by, and for the people again.
All right, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your
That was
seat.
great. You were great. Thanks, Krista. Yeah.
Thank you, Krista.
Biggest thing that I just heard from this debate you were just talking about is basically billionaires are the problem. I'm curious why do you think that they are causing the problems?
So I actually think the system is the problem. The system allows for those billionaires to have an outsized influence in our political conversation, in our economy, and it crowds out the rest of us, those who are working class and middle class Texans. And I want to try to right that imbalance. I think what you've seen in this country for the last 50 years is an economy that used to work for most people transform into one that only works for the uber wealthy. The richest 1% in this country now owns more wealth than the entire middle class. 3 dudes, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos, now own more wealth than 165 million Americans combined. And they're using that wealth to corrupt our political system. These are not the rich people of old. They're not buying yachts and jets only. They're now buying power. I mean, think about all the debates in our politics. Our schools are being defunded so those billionaires can get another tax break. Our healthcare premiums are about to go up because those billionaires want another tax break. And then our Social Security, our Medicare benefits are constantly under threat
He's so smart.
because those billionaires want
so
yet another
smart
tax
and
break.
handsome.
So I'm advocating that we limit their power and we empower working Texans to be able to fulfill their own God-given potential.
Interesting. How do you propose that we go about doing that? Because I mean, the system's been here for a long time, and I think the more important question is specifically what system? Is it the Texas system? Is it the federal system? Is it there's a lot of systems.
Yes,
Give me
there
the
are.
school system,
Yep.
the tax system. So what specifically are you talking about?
All the above. So you said that we've had it for a long time. It has been a long time. It's been about 50 years. But I just want to remind you and those watching that we did have an economic system in this country that worked for the middle class. In the 1950s, the 1960s, the richest Americans paid a top marginal tax rate of 90%. Now, I don't know if we need a tax rate that high for rich folks, but it should certainly be higher than what it is now. It's about 37% now. And so I want billionaires to pay their fair share. I don't think that George Soros should pay less as a percentage of his income in taxes than his secretary. And that's what we have now. Again, billionaires on the left, billionaires on the right, they are getting away scot-free. They are leeching the lifeblood out of this country, out of all the systems that you just mentioned. I think the only way we're going to change that is that people like you, the people around the circle, people around the state, decide to come together across all of these divides, recognize that we have a lot more in common than the billionaires want us to think, and take power back for our communities.
Interesting. So I did a little research about this,
Yeah.
and the top 5% of earners in America make about $260,000 a year. They make up for about 60% of the total federal income tax. So that's not billionaires, right?
Yeah.
So that's people who are getting by. They're doing pretty
Right,
good.
yeah.
But my question is, how can you affect billionaires and also still help not hurt those who are not billionaires, but
That's
maybe
right.
they have a couple million, and they're also providing jobs, because we have a lot of smaller businesses that are within the 5 million.
Totally
range.
agree. We don't want to hurt small businesses. We don't want to even hurt people who are upper middle class. What we want to do is go after that top 1%, actually the top 1% of that 1%, those billionaires who run this economy and run this country. Let's just take an example. The big, ugly bill that passed a few months ago in Washington. It gave $3 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. Just guess what the average billionaire is going to get in terms of tax cuts from that bill.
I'm not sure.
$110,000. Again, our money, our tax dollars are going to those billionaires who don't need it. Guess what we're going to get, regular people, what we're going to get from that bill?
Not sure.
A little over $1,000.
Okay, yeah.
To me, that feels wildly unfair. And it prevents all of us from being able to start that new business, from being able to grow the economy. It keeps us from being able to support our families and make sure that our kids are successful in school and in college and in the workforce. That is how this rigged system prevents us from achieving our potential as a country.
All right, pause. You've been voted out by majority. Please return to
Great
your
job,
seat.
Tyler. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Tess.
How are you, Tess?
So nice to
Good
meet you.
James. So, I'm gonna be straightforward, honest with you.
Yeah, please.
I agree with a lot of your stance. I am also, my family, our income household, we are in that top 3%, not one.
Yeah.
That being said, do I wish? I'm sure I'm not the only one out there.
Yeah.
Me and my family, we're not opposed to being the people who say, you tax us more.
Yeah.
We're okay with that because everybody around me, everybody I know, they're going, paycheck to paycheck, single parent. There's not many
Give
people
them
we
more
know that are
services
as blessed as
with
us.
our taxes.
That said, is it top to bottom that's the problem, or is it left to right? Because when you look at what's going on, I do think that there is a portion of greed that is effective in the billionaires' minds or the top 1%. But I think there's a lot of left and right when it comes into it, especially when you look at the industry that it plays into, whether it's oil or housing or whatnot. So I disagree that it's not entirely top bottom. I think it's a good portion of it plays into left and right.
So here's what I want to point out. This political discourse in our country, it is controlled by those billionaires increasingly. These for-profit social media platforms, these predatory algorithms, they elevate the most extreme voices on all sides to provoke our outrage.
Right.
Because that gets more clicks and that makes them more money. It's a rage economy.
Right.
Anger sells, fear sells, hate sells. These platforms designed by those billionaires, these platforms appeal to our worst demons instead of our better angels. These billionaires are engineering our emotions so they can profit off of our pain. They are selling us conflict and calling it community. These platforms don't incentivize us doing what we're doing here, which is listening to each other and finding common ground. These platforms want us at each other's throats because those billionaires benefit. Whether you're in the top 3% or whether you're in the bottom 3%, we have a lot more in common with each other than we do with those billionaires.
Absolutely.
And so they want us focused on how we're different. There's definitely a progressive conversation, a conservative conversation. That's been happening since the beginning of time. It's healthy, it's good. I'm worried about how these platforms, they divide us further apart so that we can't find that common ground anymore. And it's corrosive to our politics.
If you're elected senator, what are you going to try and implement and pass in order to make sure that this divide is eliminated? Because this divide is kind of tearing all of us apart.
It is.
It really is.
One, I want to be very honest with you. One candidate, one senator is not going to fix this.
Oh, absolutely.
This is going to be fixed by you and the people around the circle. Hopefully, running and supporting candidates who align with this purpose. But to answer your question directly about what I would want to do if I got in there, I've served for 4 terms in the State House. I've been fighting these billionaires in the trenches of the Texas legislature, and I've been bringing together Democrats and Republicans to do that. I had a bill that I filed a few sessions ago. It was actually a Bernie Sanders idea to bring cheap prescription drugs from Canada to Texas, because Canadians pay half of what we pay because Big Pharma controls our healthcare system. And I didn't think it was going to pass. But a friend of mine in the Freedom Caucus, a far-right Republican from Wichita Falls, he called me up and he was like, I really like your bill because I believe in free markets and Big Pharma distorts the free market. So he and I got that bill passed through the Texas House, through the Texas Senate, and we got it signed by the governor. It is now law in the state of Texas. We're going to start importing those drugs and saving lives. So that's an example of bringing people together across a progressive and a conservative spectrum to take power away from Big Pharma and help all Texans, regardless of your political party, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of your religion. That's what I'm going to try to do as a U.S. Senator. I want to focus on prescription drugs. I want to focus on housing. I want to focus on childcare, all things I've worked on here. I'll just tell you, we're not going to make progress on any of those issues until we get the corruption out of our politics.
Absolutely.
And so the first bill I want to file, the first bill I hopefully can vote on, is comprehensive political reform to limit big money, to end things like gerrymandering, so that we can have a government that's responsive to us and not billionaires.
But when you say comprehensive government reform, specifically.
Yeah, banning super PACs. This is the biggest loophole in our campaign finance system. I also think we have to lower campaign finance contribution limits. We do have limits at the state, at the federal level. We don't have them here in Texas. I filed a bill to put them in place here in Texas. But even those limits at the federal level, they're way too high, and they are porous. There are so many loopholes, so many ways to get around them. We've got to tighten up the system so we can actually have a political system that responds to people and not billionaires. And then I want to go further on ethics and transparency. I don't think lawmakers in our nation's capital should be buying and selling stocks, especially engaging in the insider trading, which we've seen in both political parties.
Yes.
We got to end that. We got to put an outright ban on that. These are just some of my ideas, but I'm very open to others.
All right, pause.
Oh,
Sorry.
man. Sorry.
I apologize.
Oh,
Des,
couple one.
you have to come
You've
back.
been voted out. Please
Okay.
return to your seat.
Hey, Malik.
So I do agree with a lot of things that you said earlier. As a man of faith, I feel like your heart is in the right place as well with a lot of things. I would say my only issue is we kind of talked about how
You got issues.
using the
We'll get to 'em.
billionaires' money that they're using, basically how they're avoiding taxes, avoiding paying money for all these things, and how people could potentially use that exact same money to start a business. My only issue with that is how many people nowadays are getting educated on how to start a business.
Yep.
Lots of people with like every school I've ever like after high school has some sort of business degree.
And that's a very huge issue. So okay, we can also say money is a problem, but I don't think that's necessarily what it is. And also, and I would love to be very wrong about this because I am very passionate about teachers being very underpaid.
Yeah.
And you were a teacher, so I have a lot of respect just
Sure.
there in itself. But I think you would agree as well that you even taking the step to leave that job and to now run for Senate, that's also taking a risk. Yeah. And there's people that are business owners that are obviously making a lot of money, and either way, they're going to find a way how to avoid those taxes regardless. So, but wouldn't you agree that you leaving that safe, secure job to run for Senate, that's taking a risk? Therefore, if you were now successful, you kind of deserve extra compensation for that. Would you agree?
Oh, I'm all for success.
Okay.
I'm not trying to demonize success.
Right.
Guess what percentage of baby boomers made more money than their parents? Just take a wild guess.
A wild guess. Ooh, I don't have a wild guess.
It was 90%.
Okay.
90% of baby boomers made more money than their parents did. They lived the American dream. It was a reality for most people in that generation. Guess what that number is for millennials like me?
No idea.
50%. It's even lower for Gen Z. The American dream is out of reach increasingly for most people, particularly most young people in this state and across the country.
Right.
Bro,
And that
great
is not
point.
because
Oh, man, I
millennials
missed
or Gen
one.
Z are more lazy or are not interested in succeeding or interested in growing and thriving.
Right.
It's because the system is rigged against us. That system over the last 50 years with trickle-down economics has just been so heavily weighted toward the people at the top, the billionaires, the mega donors, and then they use that wealth to then rig more rules for themselves. I'll give you one example.
Okay.
In the 1980s, they deregulated the banking system. And it allowed for these big banks to charge working people, the working poor, overdraft fees. So now you can charge a single mom who's just trying to get by working multiple jobs, you can charge her multiple overdraft fees a day. And they profit overwhelmingly from those fees.
Right.
So that's an example of a rule, or I guess a lack of a rule, that allows for the wealthy to profit off of working people and the working poor.
Right.
These are rules we can change. They're man-made. We had better rules before trickle-down economics. We can get back to that. but it's going to take you and me and all of us coming together across these divisions to take that power back, because they're not going to give it up.
100%.
They have more money. We have more people.
Yes.
We have the majority.
I say my only thing with that is because I agree with a lot of things that you're saying. My only thing is we're talking a lot about money, but money's not throwing, regardless of if people are getting paid more, that's not going to solve the issue.
Yeah.
The thing is, kind of like we were saying earlier, people that are making a lot of money maybe not teaching other people how to basically have that exact same success.
Yes.
So maybe it's not a financial issue. It's like maybe people have a lack of education on how to start that business, how to stop being a teacher. Now you're running for Senate. How many people know how to do that are teachers right now?
Yeah, I think it's both, right?
Right, exactly, for sure.
And I authored a bill in the state legislature to provide financial literacy education for students in Texas. Because, you know, in addition to learning the quadratic equation or reading Shakespeare, you should also learn how the economy works and learn how to manage your money. These are skills that maybe will have more of an impact on your life than whether or not you read Shakespeare.
Like
and
math.
I think our education
like
system has to take that into account. The problem is here in Texas and across the country, we have billionaires like Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes who are trying to close our public schools. We've seen public schools closing at an alarming rate all over Texas, in all kinds of communities, including in my own district. Schools are
putting the
closing
10
because they're being
Commandments instead of
actively
teaching them how
defunded
to,
by those billionaires who don't believe
how
in giving all
to
of us an opportunity
be,
to succeed. So all I'm trying to say is
how
that
to
we've got to
do
recognize
their,
that problem, and we've got to take
finances.
steps as a country, working people of all stripes, of all beliefs, to take power back from those billionaires and bring it into our communities for the things that you and I are talking about.
All right, guys, that's time. You may return to
Great
your
job,
seat.
Malik. Yeah. I think